Have you lost your job? Have you lost a loved one? Are you exhausted caring for your parents, for your kids? Well, you can find immediate relief when you read Sheila Mack's new #1 bestseller, Bootstraps and Bra Straps. It contains the Boots formula to move from rock bottom back into action in any situation, especially right now. If life has knocked you down, pick yourself up with Bootstraps and Bra Straps. Get your copy at www.SheilaMack.com today.
Welcome to the Sheila Mack Show, reality at its finest. Here we have real people sharing real stories and actionable steps to help you reinvent, rebuild, and reboot your business and personal life on your terms. I'm your host, Sheila Mack. I have been loving my super tea, and I want you to hear a little bit more about
The Hebo Tea Club's original Pure Pau d'Arco Super Tea helps build the red corpuscles in the blood which carry oxygen to our organs and cells. Our organs and cells need oxygen to regenerate themselves. The immune system needs oxygen to develop, and cancer dies in oxygen. So the tea is great for healthy people, and it can truly be miraculous for someone fighting a potentially life-threatening disease due to an infection, diabetes, or cancer. A 1-pound package of tea is $34.95 plus shipping. To order?
Now you may visit the website to order, and that is www.lovemysupertea.com. That's www.lovemysuper, SUPERTEA.com. Again, the complete website is lovemysupertea.com. You may also call in Pacific time, Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. to 818-288-4128. Again, the complete website is www.lovemysupertea.com.
You ready for a reboot? Welcome to the Sheila Mack Show, reality at its finest. History reminds us those hit hardest often become the change makers. This year, we've all hit crazy economic, social, and emotional rock bottoms. We all get knocked down. Something hits globally, locally, personally. It affects our health, finances, our relationships. We have to recreate a business or career. Each show, Sheila and her special guest will be sharing their reboot stories, guiding you with real solutions to upgrade and up-level emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. Here on NBC's KCAA Radio. If you're ready to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and bra straps, enjoy a listen. Here's
Welcome to the Sheila Mack Show, reality at its finest. Here we have real people sharing real stories and actionable steps to help you reinvent, rebuild, and reboot your business and personal life on your terms. I'm your host, Sheila Mack, and today we have special guest, Elaina Massie. Elaina Massie is a clinical intuitionist and the creator of the F-A.C.E method, a 5-pillar approach for replacing adverse childhood experiences with legacy leadership. She is a clinically trained social worker and a clairvoyant medium, successfully combining these two sciences to assist clients bringing peace to the world from the inside out. Elaina is convinced she was born to be a global peacemaker, and more recently is channeling the wisdom from a group of souls who call themselves The Voice. Their ultimate purpose is to share divine wisdom that can help unite our world as one family living in peace. All right, welcome to the show, Elaina.
Thank you so much, Sheila. I'm in your future here, being in Australia at 8 in the morning.
Yes, good morning. And I would love to start off. This show actually came about based on my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. And so I'd like to start off with asking if you have a time in your business or personal life where you experienced a tough situation and how you got back on track.
Yeah, there's been many of those holdback times for me. The one that stands out most of all was in 2018. I have always fused my clinical skills with my clairvoyance, but I was working with a client And it was, no matter what I did with her, it just didn't work out. And I even sent her away saying, come back. And then I got stuck again. And then I realized that she was me.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. Now, when did you notice having your connection, the clairvoyant connection?
Now, that's another story. That was when I was 19. My mother died tragically in a fire.
Mm.
And I have 3 degrees, but my first is in teaching. And I was home alone. And my mother's old room used to be above. Now, I was totally focused on the studies for the paper I was writing. And all of a sudden, I heard a thump and a sobbing. And it came from the bedroom that she had, which I had stripped bare and made it mine. I thought I was going through some form of psychosis, some form of acute grief. I thought I was going crazy. And this happened the next night. And then I realized, well, I needed to find out, am I going crazy? What happens to people who die tragically? So I was going down the science path, but I went to a clairvoyant reader and who became a friend. And she said, your mum's dead and you pretty much know she ended her life. And you're a medium. And so what I discovered then was, it wasn't just something like I heard, it's called objective hearing. So I literally heard her as loud as I could hear you. And that was the beginning. That was and ever since then, there's a place called the Arthur Findlay College in England. It's the world's there's a good one in the States as well, that's specifically on the sciences. So I was just like gathering information. I wanted to prove I wasn't mad.
Right. Yes. So did that scare you, or no, you just felt
it terrified me, Sheila. It terrified me. When you're hearing a voice in the room and you're in the house on your own, I literally thought I was going to be locked up in a mental institution. I really did. And it was scary, really scary. However, the more I understood, and these days I would say that the veil between the two worlds is very thin.
Oh yeah.
And I know that when I work with clients, they're actually, as they clear the trauma, they become absolute channels for the spirit. And we've got great people in the spirit world who want to share their wisdom with us. They want to bring peace to the world. They want to radiate love. And what blocks us from being able to communicate often is those childhood experience, those traumas. But we can heal them. Everything is healable.
Yes. That's so interesting. Now, for me, I've always been very connected also. So little girl, 4 years old, I remember waking I was with grandparents and my mom at the same time. And I remember waking them up at, this crazy hour in the middle of the night, 3, 4 in the morning. And I said, George came to me and he kissed me on both cheeks.
Yeah.
And this was an older man. And he gave me a bag of money. And in the morning, well, probably afternoon, by the time the wife came over, he had passed around that time.
Oh, no.
And she had in her hand a bag of silver dollars.
Wow.
that she gave that he had been saving for me. And so they were like, nah, that's just like, they tried to rationalize the whole thing. And I was like, okay, well, I really felt like he said goodbye. And how was I going to know at that age? And that was just it's just a normal thing, but it's not something I ever talked a lot about in my life openly, because people are like, okay, well, let's get you to a therapist right away.
I understand that one.
And, I did actually plug into, John Hopkins, and they had a paranormal studies. And during the time when we had the 9/11, before it happened, I was having these complete visions and dreams about it. So I did plug into that study, and I had no idea what it was going to be, except for I described so much of it, including the afterwards. I saw buildings, plane, the whole story. But then I said, and then everybody went into peace. And there were these 2 swimming pools 11 years later.
Wow.
The commentary is the two pools, the fountain and the pools.
Yeah.
And how could I have seen that? Because I never made sense of that for all those 11 years. It's like, but where did the pools come from in the vision? So many times I think it doesn't make any sense.
No.
You can't, and you don't know. You can't control. I don't know if you get to control it at all.
I've learned to. People say to me, if I say to people, I used to start off when I was speaking saying I speak bilingually. For those of you that, the rational ones would want to know that I've got 3 degrees. And then I go, so you think I'm sensible, but you think I'm stuck in my head. And then I go over here and say, oh, I'm a medium. So they say, oh, can you see my grandmother? And they think I'm going through some mental illness.
Right.
And so they automatically will say, I don't know whether if you tell them you've got this gift or this ability, they'll say, who can you see around me?
Yeah.
That's one of the first questions. And I don't. I literally do not. I choose. It's a friend of mine who's now in spirit said you wouldn't open your front door to everybody. And I don't.
That's good. That's a good point.
So you don't. And the same as when I speak, when I'm into deep trance, to use that communication, I can pull out and pull in whenever I want to. And with time, the blending is just getting so strong. But it's a choice.
There are people today that do the plant medicines to get to the spiritual connection. What's your thought on that?
I actually have. I haven't experienced ayahuasca myself, but I'm not against it at all. Yeah. I know people like Gabo Mateo, who's quite a trauma-based medical practitioner, and he's very supportive of it. I think Mother Earth is providing all sorts of remedies to help us awaken. So I haven't experienced it. That doesn't mean to say I wouldn't experience it, because I do see some great value. There was a time about 5 or 6 years ago, I was in some workshop with someone in Australia, and he had been to South America, and he was experiencing the ayahuasca, and he was creating a shamanic experience. I grew up in Nigeria, so shamanism is very normal for me. And I literally could feel the ayahuasca mother plant energy in the room, and I hadn't taken the plant, but it was interesting. So I'm not against it, far from it. I think if it's under certain conditions, I think it's a good option. My concern is when people take things and there's no preparation.
Right. I agree. And that's something I haven't done that either. And I'm very connected already. So it's like, I'm kind of good with, I don't need any more.
And that's how I feel, because the more I've resolved, the more I've resolved the challenges that were blocking my ego, or my, what did I get the other day? Ego was erratic, generic obstructions. So like this crazy stuff that we pick up from either society, these thoughts in society, or that we've carried. And I've noticed when I've worked with people, some of it is generational. So even if you had a perfect childhood, it can quite often, like my grandmother was in Austria. So there's a lot of that would be in my cells, not because I didn't even know her, but she comes to me. So yeah.
That's interesting, because there's something about the healing of the past trauma. And when you ask 99.9% of everybody on the planet, they're like, yes, I had this past trauma. And I mean, I raised 6 children, and they all have a different story of their past trauma growing up in our home. And it's like, see, that happened. And the other kids are like, what are you talking about? And so it's like, it's so individual. And no matter what, if you're listening in, parents, you do your best. We all do our best, and it's okay. And then it's okay to get better at doing your best in a different way. But it's not, it's almost like it's part of the journey of that child or that person. Or for me, whatever I went through was part of what I needed in some weird way. I would have preferred to read about it, but that's what I guess I needed. And so that's something to let go of. How what is letting go of a past trauma that maybe you thought was gone? What does that look like for people that work with you?
Do you know, it's funny because there is a sense of silence and peace that happens. And when I've been using EMDR, because I'm a medium and I help people go through the process of going into memories, I had a client about 4 months ago now. He's sitting with me and the tears are rolling down his face, and he was communicating with his father in the spirit world. So this was no longer a memory. He was making peace, which is, as a medium, when you link to the spirit, people want to know, my you know, they're okay, but you can actually heal those things now. So when in this particular episode, when he was tapping in, first of all, he was dealing with the unresolved things with his mum and dad, but then suddenly, through something that's regarded as clinical, he was tapping into the spirit world. Yeah. And so there was this peace inside him. And I just said, we don't need to say anything else now, do I? I think you just need to go home and just sit, because he was in this blissful place. That one event, which started off in the traditional way. So, and speaking to, you know, as you mentioned, the parents that are listeners, when I talk about legacy leaders, I'm not talking about everyone who does the Nelson Mandela, Abraham Lincoln. If you've gone through trauma as a child and your vocation is to do a really good job as a parent, then to me, that's a legacy leader. If you've got the challenges of being a single parent, or someone who's trying to manage the challenges from COVID and everything else, I think you're being a legacy leader in that moment. So don't ever assume that your job or your role or your contract isn't, you know, you're failing because you're not doing this grand thing. You know, everything starts with a small. And so when there's a mum or a dad and there's these children and you're wondering how you're going to feed them the next day, to me, if you call into your soul, you're going to be looked after by the spirit world. Because just like you had that dream about the bag of money, you know, it's just amazing. The spirit world want to work with us. They want to help us.
Yes, so true. I mean, I remember my house burned down, my car was lost, my cat, and I talk about that in my book. That's why I started writing that book to help people getting through things. And it's really interesting because you know, the credit was gone because all the money was gone into the house and everything was used up. And so I had a down payment for a car, and I got guided I needed a nice car. I was working with great clients in Beverly Hills, and I drove them around sometimes, this and that. And so I needed a certain type of car. And my budget didn't really have that in there. It was a month after, I mean, the fires were still burning. So, you know, no insurance money came in, nothing had happened yet. And I picked up a friend at the airport, helped her find a house. She was from Virgin Islands, moved to Beverly Hills. And then we were driving a Mercedes, and she said, you drive, because it's the different side of the steering wheel. So I'm driving her around, and she says, that car looks good on you. That should be your next car. And I said, you know, it feels good too. Do you know, then I rented a car when I was done driving her around in her rental car to take another client, and it broke down. And I thought, this is the end. This is terrible. But I said, nope, I'm going to stay in the good energy. I look at the clock, it's 4:44. I get an email from a car dealership that was not the brand. It was like a very modest car dealership. And they said, we'll give you a $75 Visa card if you come in and test drive our cars. And I said, well, since I'm nearby, because the other car broke down nearby, and it was not a place I usually go, not a part of town I would go to normally, I said, I'll just Uber over and be open-minded. You know, in the lot was the exact Mercedes I was driving. I get chills. And I said, okay, here's my credit score. That's the car I need. And they said, well, I can get you into the car, because in this area, nobody wants to buy that kind of car. And I got it 6,000 below Blue Book.
Wow.
And they gave it to me. And then the man who actually cleaned it, and they tell you how to use all the buttons, the radio, all that, looked just like my deceased father. when he was younger, and I said, "Oh, you look like my dad," and he was like, "I'm younger than you," and I was like, and the thing was, I really felt that was a heaven sent gift.
Yes.
It was, I got you,
Yes.
and I cried all the way home.
Yeah.
And so there's something about being opened to, okay, I have this, I'm going to go somewhere, because it was an email and the thing broke. It was really listening to what didn't make any sense.
Absolutely. Because
And
the rational mind wants to make sense.
Yes,
that's not where you're going to get the connection to the spirit from, not the rational mind.
Exactly. And I got the car and the $75 in groceries for the week. I was like, this is crazy. It is so good. And they called me the next day and they said, we made a mistake. Your credit really didn't qualify, but we already gave you a contract. So as long as you can pay, you can keep the car. And I was like, verification. I mean, it was so like a miracle upon a miracle. And I paid it off like 3 months later. Once I got back on track. So it wasn't a big deal, but it was a big deal during that time. It was like, it's proof. Hey, we've got you from the other side.
Yes. And that's what happens consistently. And for me, what I'm hearing in a lot of your story is the fact you've always known that you were here to help in some significant way. Yeah. And when you make that intention, big or small, that's anyone that's listening, I guarantee the spirit world will work with you. When I bring through the voice, they are saying, we want to be of help. We want to assist you. You're not doing this on your own.
Nice.
And so, and then when, even in this conversation, I'm hoping that some of your listeners will really trust that it's okay to really trust that the spirit world now are becoming a stronger influence. And let's face it, the more, when we've had since this COVID challenge around the world, for example, the stress and the mental health. But if you just call out, you will find magic in the air.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely convinced.
And I think there was a necessary surrender.
And that's the key. Absolutely. Yes. Well done. Yeah.
That was it. And that's something that, like, okay, you know what? We're not in control right now. Look at this COVID stuff is crazy. But what are we really in control of? What's beyond us that's in more control than we think? And the bigger puzzle picture that we can't see, where everything is tied together so beautifully for something new and even better. And so that's something I believe is that surrender. And sometimes it takes crazy things happening, house burning down and whatever, to actually get you to that point.
It's funny because when I talked about, my mission is to help people replace trauma with your purpose, your divine purpose. And people were saying, oh, but why should I have to go through the trauma? Trauma, was it Leonard Cohen's song that talked something about
the light
ego? Yes, that it cracks you open. And there's nothing more painful. I mean, I've had trauma in every single decade. And yet I wouldn't be who I am now with my little, she's my little Ellie. This is my inner child I always wear, because Ellie is the little girl in Nigeria that grew up through all sorts of challenges. And now she dances in my whole being because, everyone's inner child needs to be able to dance their spirit. And every single one of us is here to do something with our lives. Oh, yeah. And trauma is as painful as it is, that you and I and many of your listeners would know. My goodness, we don't want to go through it. But, like you were talking about the wealthy millionaires who have been on a driven journey. And when I'm working with people who have had one focus, which was to be successful financially, and then there's this gaping hole inside. And quite often they've hidden past. That's why I call the model face, because it's like feeling it and facing all those adverse childhood experiences. When you face that, you can use your life in a way that leaves a legacy in some way. And it's important.
It's like the Michaelmas story, the facing the dragon.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And how we all At one point or another, it doesn't matter how many millions or billions you have.
No.
All get to face the dragons, and then we realize how cute and little they really are. That's it, and it gets easier.
Yeah, I mean, listen, would you change, as painful as those times were, Sheila? Would you literally say, oh, well, I just want a smooth life? Because you wouldn't be who you are now. I wouldn't be here feeling this sense of stillness. Now, don't get me wrong, challenges come up. However, it's like I know now that it's just another rock in the road that's just going to be. And if it's a really few days of really challenge, I think, oh, big boulder here. That means we're going to get through it, and there's going to be something even bigger on my path. And that's why I want for your listeners to really hear that everything can be healed and recovered. There is nothing that we can be so scarred that it's not fixable. And when you see the light shining from some people who have been through extraordinary challenges, they just radiate. I mean, I'm sure your listeners will say there's something about Sheila sometimes that just radiates, and that's because of what you've gone through.
Yes. Now, I know I had a discussion the other day with a close friend of mine, I'm going to share this with for sure, who is a psychologist, therapist as well. And whenever I go into that spiritual part of things, no, that's just a coincidence. And I wonder, is that something that is a educated thing, or how does
when I was I'll be quite honest, when my mother died in this fire, she was always I don't want to sort of bring a flatness to your listeners, but she was one of these that was almost addicted to finding ways of leaving the planet. So she was one of those. And so when this happened, I was so scared of what I was experiencing that my automatic response was to become so educated that I would never end up like her. So, I gathered degree after degree, and I was trying to fix myself intellectually. However, what was always missing was this hole in my heart. And the more I went down the other path, developing my spirit, but still I felt split. What experience you asked me right at the beginning of this conversation about what was the key point. And when I went to Thailand, I was stuck. I had these 3 university degrees. I'd gathered so much knowledge about the spirit world. I knew it intellectually. I knew how to give. And yet I was still, what had happened, it was like my head and my heart were not communicating.
Okay.
And so what we've got the masculine model of academics, if you like, and the spiritual or the feminine version of the spirit. But, there's an egg and a sperm that happens to make a baby. And, in case you didn't know, and so it's the two of them that birth the new you. So it was when you were able to claim but feel confident that you've had those experiences. There's nothing in the world you can tell me that I'm going through all sorts of experiences and I'm making them up or I'm unstable. I know with 100% certain that the spirit world exists. You cannot convince me. It's too much evidence for me. Exactly. And I can now, with the F-A.C.E model, I've now been really blending the two. So I've got people who didn't believe in the spirit before and are now having experiences because they're around me. It's contagious. But it's, I'm constantly rational. I do not, that's what spiritual emergence, spiritual bypassing is about. When people are just, oh, I'm spiritual.
Right.
And I think, well, what are you hiding behind that facade? Let's let's heal something, because you've got to fuse your head and your heart. You've got to be rational and you've got to be energetically connected. One without the other ain't going to work.
Yes. I remember reading when I first started really my own studies into all this, I was reading Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Oh, yeah.
his erroneous zones from the
Yes.
therapeutic clinical side. And
Yes.
he took all his readers on this incredible journey and that led to spirituality and
Yes.
connection. And it was a journey that
Yeah.
that a lot of people that were reading his first books were like, wait, what happened here? And yet they continued along.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that does happen, and it is a beautiful possibility for
Yeah.
people when the two come together.
I know. And so what we've got is, we talked about those that, they're rational, they're either, gathering more qualifications because their ego needs to feel important. And that's what was happening to me. I felt my little inner child was so damaged and so unlovable, defective is what she thought she was. Growing up, I had a lot of violence and domestic violence and trauma when I was in Nigeria. So I used to have Bella, the Nigerian servant, who used to talk to me about the spirit and the nature and how Mother Nature would help us. And I noticed that used to make me heal, but I still didn't feel value. So I would gather these university degrees. And so, yes, I understood more about what was wrong with me, but I didn't actually heal at the core of my soul. And they're two very different things. And so that's why, I when anyone works with me, they have to experience an awareness that you are going to experience more. Some will want to work more with spirit, but I can't guarantee it will be a pure connection if they've got unresolved things going on here. So I really do. I'm passionate about both sides. It's like I've become the little girl that mum and dad, for years it was like my head and my heart was so divorced, and so I didn't know where I fitted. And now my mum and dad inside me, my masculine and my feminine, my head and my heart, are really lovingly working together, and that's why I get the results I do. And even with EMDR and Francine Shapiro, when I had those experiences where people were healing and then tapping into spirit, there's a psychologist in the States who also was using EMDR, and he was experiencing people were having near-death experiences through his work.
Wow.
And that was accidental. So you can see now that the spirit world is so clever that they're now bringing into academics and traditional people this ability. So it's not just coming through our challenges anymore. They want us to be together, because that's how we're going to bring peace. Wayne Dyer is a classic example of a voice who spoke both worlds. Classic example.
Definitely. Now, my daughter, she's 25. She's kind of following in that kind of field where she's studying psychology. She's worked for 4 years at a girls' home for pregnant teens and the moms. And she looks like she's 16, even though she's 25. So, so she looks like one of the people that lives there when she gets there and the new girls come in. But she also is very intuitive.
Yeah.
And connected. And so things will happen sometimes, and we always will look it up in Louise Hay's book, or well, what do you think that means? And last week, the most interesting, now she's working at a bookstore because she's going to the university full-time to finally get licensing. And you know what that's like. It's like intense. So she's at the bookstore instead. And she says, Mom, you won't believe this. The pipes broke at work, and the whole area, she did the coffee area, got shut down. Interesting. I said, well, okay, we're going to look it up. And I kind of forgot. And then the pipe at home broke. And I said, oh, honey, this is following you. This is a new house. Like it's new. The warranty just expired, and the home warranty. So I said, we need to see what it is that it's in your field.
Yes.
And we looked it up, and there was some grief. We're healing from losing a brother and who had a heart condition. So it was one of those a few years ago, and there's still a lot going on there. And we had talks, and we got into a lot of discussion on that, because of the pipes, like the awareness that sometimes you don't bring things up as much, or, you know, and so it was interesting how even our environments will speak to us sometimes if we're open to
Absolutely.
listening.
Absolutely. When I see pipes and water as emotion, unresolved, unhealed emotion.
Mhm.
And I've relocated to Brisbane, Queensland recently, but I lived on the Gold Coast until a few months ago. And in the house I had, I remember buying it, great building inspection, everything. This was 3 years before I sold it. And all of a sudden, a month into owning it, I started to see this leaking on the ceiling, and my whole bathroom had an ongoing leak that the building inspection didn't pick up. So that had to be fixed. And then another episode that we had the rains, the heavy duty rains, and I had water flooding into my garage. And then just before I was selling it, the building inspection of the new owner found another leak on the outside that needed to be dealt with. And it was just water, water, water. And then all of a sudden it was done. And I thought, yeah. So water is to me an absolute key to emotion.
Right, right. And there's something to that whole process. Losing
Yes.
some of your best friend, brother kind of thing that's a little different at a young age.
Yes. How old was your son when he died?
He was 22.
Yeah.
So he was very young, and they were best buddies their whole life. Inseparable practically.
Yeah.
So it's something, and she does go to therapy for that still as needed. And so I said, I think it might be because it was right around the holiday time. So we're getting right into the holidays again, the kickoff, and then the pipes start going. And I'm like, okay, we need to talk about this.
Yes.
She's open to, okay, yeah, what does that mean? And we look things up all the time and just have fun with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carl Jung, the psychiatrist, used to talk about the difference between, you know, even if something goes on with your car, for example, a flat tire has a lot to do with energy. So he used to look, and I've got a book on my bookshelf called The House is a Mirror of Yourself.
Wow.
So we can actually, and so this was written by a woman in Findhorn in Scotland, and she was looking at the energy of a house, talks about. So when I had all those flooding issues, I still had unresolved emotional things that needed to be cleared. And when I sold it, I went, yeah, I know this. I'm done. So I understand. Does she feel her brother, or do you feel him around you?
Oh yeah, we definitely do. We get beautiful signs and messages and feathers. I have one feather that's stuck at the back door, right in the center of the threshold above, and it has been there since we returned from his service. It was January 6th was when we did the final burying. And
This year? Is that this year?
2020.
So it's last year.
And we've gone through windstorms, weather storms, hail, you know, just all kinds of crazy weather where, how does this feather, I did not glue it up there. How is this feather still there? Yeah. It's things, weird little things like that are like, or you'll get a little guidance.
Yes.
Something, you'll be guided to connect with somebody or do something. And it's like, oh, okay. I hear, or a song will come on that's his song to us, and it'll be like, oh yeah, you know. Or we went to visit his beautiful. We have a beautiful site that we got for him, and it's with all the different temples and religions all around. And there's a Buddhist monk temple nearby that they chant every day, and he likes music, so he has the live music chanting every day, and whoever visits, they can go to wherever they want to go after if they want to. And so that was it. And when we went there, we were there kneeling by the grave site, and a coyote came right up to us and sat with us. And we're like, okay, I have it on film, and I shared it on my social. And so I was like, wow, Sheila, don't move too fast. Guess who's here? And so those are just some really interesting, like, it was daylight. It was daytime when we were there, and this coyote was just sitting with us. So
My connection to the earth and animals has been really strong for years. Another example, like the coyote thing, I was with a friend of mine had come visiting before I moved from the Gold Coast, and we were both teachers together at one point. No, I was a social worker at the time in the education, but she was a teacher, and she was with me, and she started asking me to, tap into spirit, and she wanted to know about a particular student who had died tragically through a sort of a particular circumstance. And she said, "Is she still alive?" is what she said to me. And I was in the process of trying to tune in. And all of a sudden, a beetle, the most brightly colored beetle that neither of us could find in the books, flew by and laid on her leg.
oh, wow. Yeah.
And it was, both of us spent ages looking in beetle books, and it was like 3 or 4 different colors. One of the colors was the color of my jacket, and it was extraordinary. And then it just sat there and then flew away. And I just said to Rosie, "I think you've had your answer."
Yeah.
It was clearly the spirit world coming through in the form of an insect, but in your case, it was in the case of an animal. So, yeah.
Yeah.
The same as when you were buying the car and you noticed, that it was like, it's called transfiguration. So they actually quite often, when I'm in trance, especially when my colleague will sit with me and he'll say, "Elaina, I've seen this person come across, and then that person, and then that person." So when you saw your dad, you just went, "Yeah, thanks, Dad."
Yep. Oh, yes. And I had no doubt. And then they called me and said, "We made a mistake. You really didn't qualify for that car credit." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I did. I had some help."
Exactly. And I feel like, again, getting back to, once people heal the adverse childhood experiences, that those experiences, like when you wrote your book, and which obviously was very therapeutic in the process, it was a very healing tool for you. And so that gave you this ability. And, for listeners that are listening to the two of us talk about that, it's not something that, there's an argument in the mediumship circles about whether it's a gift or whether it's not. Are you born with it or you develop it? And I believe we're all born with it, because we're all spirit to start off with. And then we put these physical bodies on, but we're spirit first. And so when we remember that, then you get to have these experiences that you've had with your dad or with your son, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's there working with you, giving you the connections to the people, so that you'll keep doing the work from, it's phenomenal, the work that's coming from the other side now.
Right. Definitely.
And there is this soul's contract, I believe, that when I was beating myself up about 12 years ago, saying to a friend, why am I getting to this age and I still haven't achieved what I'm here to do? What is it? And she looked at me and she said, "Elaina, you know this stuff. You know that every soul is coded to awaken to their purpose at a particular time."
Right.
And and that's what yours is. And so obviously your son is now working on the other side with you. And you're not, when you're dead, you just lose this skin.
Right.
The evidence, when I've brought spirit through for people, it's just the tears, because I'll give you an example. I was working with a woman. It was a minister of a spiritualist church. It was a number of years ago in Brisbane. And it was a day when I would donate my time as a reader, as a medium link once a month. And most of them were psychic, but I don't see myself as a predictive psychic. I don't read cards. I make a connection with the spirit first. And she said to this lady, "Go to Elaina, because Elaina is a medium." And what she was going on about, she was concerned that she turned the life support off for her father at the advice of the hospital. And then she felt like she killed him. So she was really distressed and really, really low. And so when we went into the room, when she came in the room with me, we made the link, and she could feel her father through me, because I'm very kinesthetic, so I'm very feely. So the spirit comes through me, so people get that experience. And she could feel him, and he was alive and kicking without this body, and the tears were rolling this time, but differently, because she said, I did the right thing, he's free now. And that was the gift of being able to make that link. So because you've already got the link to spirit, your son can use you and you can use him to bridge these two worlds. So, you know, you've got busy work to do between the two of you.
Oh, for sure. Yes, he got a promotion for sure. That is definitely something. And yeah, there's always a way to connect. Now, I would love for you to share, because we are coming to the end of our talking time, how people can connect with you if they want to work with you, get a reading, or however that works, how that looks.
Well, basically, I was saying to you earlier that when I took a year off, almost a year off, when last December, I made a break for social media, full stop. So there is a link to my Facebook, and I have all the others there, but my website is up on the screen. And so that would be one way of connecting with me, would be probably my website at the moment, ElainaMassie.com.au. Is that showing up?
It is. And for those listening on radio, because it goes to TV and radio, let's just spell it out. So www.ELAINAMASSIE.com.
.au.
C-A-U?
No, AU. So it's .com.au. So it's an Australian website link, but I think the .com would link as well, but .com.au. So yes, there is. I gave the link for this to be shown on my Facebook, but there's been nothing happening there, because when you're on a journey to literally find your real purpose in life, sometimes you have to pull out of life a little while to come back. And so having this conversation with you, Sheila, today has been absolutely a gift. And it's really, you know, now I'm coming back with this very new message.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you again for being a guest on the show, Elaine. And for those tuning in, we'll be back after these messages. All right.
Thank you.
I have been loving my super tea, and I want you to hear a little bit more about
Tehibo Tea Club's original Pure Pau d'Arco Super Tea helps build the red corpuscles in the blood which carry oxygen to our organs and cells. Our organs and cells need oxygen to regenerate themselves. The immune system needs oxygen to develop, and cancer dies in oxygen. So the tea is great for healthy people, and it can truly be miraculous for someone fighting a potentially life-threatening disease due to an infection, diabetes, or cancer. A 1-pound package of tea is $34.95 plus shipping. To order?
Now you may visit the website to order, and that is www.lovemysupertea.com. That's www.lovemysuper, SUPERTEA.com. Again, the complete website is lovemysupertea.com. You may also call in Pacific Time, Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. to 818-288-4128. Again, the complete website is www.lovemysupertea.com.
Necessitated. You need a guide to show you how we get through a situation like this, to give you resources and to help you get out of the emotional pea soup fog of dealing with a crisis and the resulting fallout. I've been there, and I'm here to help you. Out of the fog. If you weren't emotionally bound up in your situation, you would have more clarity. You would be able to see your best options for dealing with whatever comes up. If the version of yourself who has already walked through this rock bottom and come out the other end could go back in time and give you, the you right now, some advice, what would she say? Would she tell you to slow down, to stop rushing, that you don't have to have all the answers today? Would the future you recommend not making any major decisions without reviewing them first, particularly while you're still in the fog? Would she tell you that normal is going to look different for a while, but that you will feel normal again? In case we haven't invented time travel by the time you read this book, I'm here to tell you all of the above. I developed the Boots formula to help you learn to make choices, have a life shift, and make great things happen based on your individual values and best life vision. A change is going to happen, and it's worth it. There's a stage where it feels like everyone in your life is picking at you. Life itself may seem like it's trying its best to stop you from doing whatever you want to do. All you hear is, "That's a stupid idea," and "That's never going to work," and "Who do you think you are?" One of the hardest things for people to do is to realign and possibly walk away from anything and anyone that conflicts with their value systems. But you are going to discover that power within yourself. Through the activities and examples in this book, you will discover your true north and will be able to easily do what is needed to move forward with your life. Anything that hurts you, that doesn't resonate for you, that fights against what you want and believe in, you are going to give it the boot. Once you have turned your rock bottom moment into a positive, beautiful life shift, you can live your life on your terms. Your life will probably look different, but you get to design it this time. You are taking your life back, and you are in charge, not anybody else. Sooner than you can imagine, you'll be in the career of your dreams or the relationship you always wanted. Because you are going to learn to develop healthy boundaries. Because you are going to do things differently along the way from here to there. You will begin to attract the people, the job, the place to live, all of the opportunities that align with who you are, your essence, your truth, not anybody else's or even society's expectations of the way you're supposed to be. Once you have accepted that you are in charge of living your life and you begin to embody living your truth, people are going to see you. They're going to be inspired by you. Then you're going to hear, "Hey, can you show me how you did that? I want to do it too." When you assess your peer group and up-level according to your life purpose and vision, and once you have created a life shift for yourself, whatever that looks like, your life is not just full, it's fulfilled. Not only do you get more and better sleep, you wake up feeling rested and happy. You know that you're doing what you need to do. Yes, sometimes your heart will call you to leave certain friends or family members in order to find a more aligned peer group. From what I've seen, however, the ones who leave always return to lead their family and friends to success. Because your friends are more in alignment with your beliefs and value system, they support you while also pushing you toward your personal best. Life still involves work, but as a whole, it feels far more effortless. But you don't have to wait for the right person, right job, or right investment opportunity to show up. You can start living now so that every moment as you go forward through the process of recovering from rock bottom and redesigning your life is one more step to being the best version of you, the one who came.
All right, if you are looking to reinvent life on your terms, if you are grieving, experiencing financial turmoil, career shifts, relationship problems, parenting, elder care, victims of abuse, breaking free from an addiction, or seeking an overall business and lifestyle redesign, then you may need a reboot. It is not
Fits all, just like a pair of boots or a bra. So the formula is designed to help you through any situation.
homework, grab a copy of my bestseller Bootstraps and Bra Straps to learn the formula to go from rock bottom and back into action in any situation. If you have a burning question for the show, send it in to www.dearsheila.com. Tune in again Mondays at 1 p.m. Pacific Time and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, right here on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind.